The quiet backroads of America seem peaceful, safe. But some crimes don't echo through the cities, they vanish into the stillness of the countryside. These murders didn't just end lives, they left questions no one could answer. They're the ones where time keeps ticking, but justice never arrives. Tonight, we take you into the darkest corners of rural America, where 3 disturbing unsolved murders continue to haunt the very soil where they were committed. Case 1. The Keddie Cabin Murders, Keddie, California. In the remote Sierra Nevada mountains of Northern California, the former resort town of Keddie was already dying by the 1980s. On April 11, 1981, the Sharp family was brutally murdered in their cabin. The crime scene was horrific, with multiple victims and no clear motive. Despite extensive investigations, the case remains unsolved to this day, leaving the small community haunted by the mystery. Once a bustling vacation stop, it had become a shadow of itself. Abandoned cabins, overgrown paths, and a population scraping by. In cabin 28, 36-year-old Glenna Sue Sharp lived with her 5 children. She had moved there to start over after fleeing an abusive marriage. On the evening of April 11, 1981, she watched TV with her kids. Hours later, 3 of them would be dead. The crime scene was a nightmare. Sue, her 15-year-old son John, and his 17-year-old friend Dana were bound with electrical wire and brutally murdered. They were stabbed, beaten with a hammer, and in John's case, possibly strangled. Blood spattered the walls and soaked the carpet. But what chilled investigators was what wasn't there. Sue's 12-year-old daughter Tina was missing. 3 other children, Greg, Rick, and a friend, were found unharmed in a nearby bedroom, asleep and undisturbed. They hadn't heard a thing. There was no sign of forced entry. Months passed, then years. In 1984, Tina's remains were found miles away in a remote forest clearing, along with her clothes and part of her skull. 2 suspects emerged: Martin Smart, a neighbor with a violent past and known connection to Sue, and his friend Beau Boubaid, a former convict. Both men gave inconsistent statements. Smart even wrote a letter confessing to killing the love of his life. But law enforcement bungled the investigation. Evidence was misplaced, leads ignored, the FBI files disappeared. The cabin was eventually demolished, the crime scene buried, literally. To this day, no one has been arrested. The town of Keddie, now nearly vanished from the map, is remembered only for one thing: the night an entire family was slaughtered, and no one ever paid for it. Case 2. Missy Bevers, Midlothian, Texas, April 18, 2016. A storm rolled through Midlothian, Texas. Missy Bevers was found murdered in a church where she was preparing for a fitness class. The killer, dressed in police tactical gear, was caught on surveillance footage but remains unidentified. It was early, just before 5 a.m., when Terry Missy Bevers, a 45-year-old mother of 3, arrived at Creekside Church to set up for a morning fitness class. She never made it out alive. Surveillance footage showed a figure, dressed in police tactical gear, inside the church moments before her arrival. The person was calm, methodical, opening doors, smashing glass, walking with a distinct limp or exaggerated step. Their identity was impossible to determine. Missy was found bludgeoned to death, head trauma, defensive wounds, no sign of sexual assault. Her valuables were untouched. There was no apparent motive. Who was the person in tactical gear? A deranged intruder? Someone targeting Missy? The costume suggested premeditation and an eerie awareness of how to stage the scene. Suspicion initially fell on Missy's husband Brandon, but he had an alibi. A former boyfriend was questioned. A man seen at a nearby sporting goods store days before was examined. Nothing stuck. Investigators tried to analyze the suspect's gait from the video, but experts couldn't agree. Even with hundreds of tips, polygraphs, and hours of footage, no charges were filed. The most haunting part? Missy had made a cryptic Facebook post just weeks before her death, hinting at problems and betrayals in her life. Some say it pointed to an affair, others to a feud, but her killer has never spoken. The church, once a place of peace, became the backdrop for a ritual of violence, and the killer, whoever they are, remains free. Case 3. Debbie Wolfe, Fayetteville, North Carolina. In December 1985, 28-year-old nurse Debbie Wolfe left work as usual. Super Fayetteville, North Carolina, 1985. On-screen text. Location and date appear over footage of a quiet, rural town at dusk. She never made it home. Her body was found days later in a pond near her house under suspicious circumstances. The case remains unsolved, leaving the small town haunted by unanswered questions. She was described as bright, kind, and deeply dedicated to her patients. But when she didn't show up the next day, or answer her phone, her mother knew something was wrong. Arriving at Debbie's rural cabin home, her mother found unsettling details. The front door was ajar, her uniform lay crumpled on the floor. Her 2 dogs, normally friendly, were scared and hungry. Her purse, Idaho, and keys were inside, but Debbie was gone. Police dismissed it at first. They said she'd probably run off, maybe with a boyfriend. But 5 days later, volunteer searchers found her body in a nearby pond, stuffed inside a 55-gallon barrel. The barrel, her family insisted, hadn't been there before. The body was bloated far beyond typical decomposition. And strangest of all, authorities claimed no foul play. They refused an autopsy. They claimed she drowned, but the ropes on her body told another story. The barrel disappeared. Evidence went uncollected. The entire investigation was shut down within days. Her mother believes Debbie was murdered, that she was lured home, ambushed, and disposed of by someone who knew the terrain, and possibly had connections to the authorities. Whispers around town speak of a man Debbie had been seeing, a co-worker, someone with a temper. But without an official investigation, it's just rumor. Debbie Wolfe vanished in a town that didn't seem to care. And the way her case was silenced may be more disturbing than her death itself. Rural America hides more than farmland and forests. It hides ghosts, victims without justice, questions that hang like fog in the early morning. The murders of Sue Sharp, Missy Bevers, and Debbie Wolfe remain unsolved, but they are not forgotten. If you have any information, please come forward. Help bring justice to these cold cases. 3 cases, no answers. Only whispers in the dark. Subscribe now for more real stories that chill to the bone and remind us that evil doesn't always make noise. Sometimes it walks in silence.